Have you ever stopped to think that nothing happens by chance? What lies behind the coincidences in your life? Perhaps the collective unconscious has much more power than you imagine. Everything you experience, all your decisions, might be shaped by an invisible pattern connecting you to the whole. What if you could understand these signs and use them to your advantage? Stay with me until the end and discover how the collective unconscious is shaping your journey. Most people grow up believing in chance as if life were a game of luck. This mechanistic view, inherited from Cartesian thinking, makes us see events as mere purposeless coincidences. But what if nothing were truly random? Carl Jung challenged this idea by stating there is an invisible pattern governing our journey, something that escapes traditional logic. Unexpected small encounters, seemingly trivial decisions, and even phrases we hear at just the right moment may not be the work of blind fate, but rather indications of something greater operating behind the scenes of reality. Jung proposed that there exists a collective mind, something that connects all of us at a deeper level than we imagine. This concept, called the collective unconscious, would be like a psychic ocean where each individual is just a temporary wave. Thus, experiences that seem isolated may actually be linked by invisible threads weaving humanity's story. Many ancient traditions already suggested this through the idea of interconnectivity. When something that seemed improbable happens at the exact moment to generate a significant impact, perhaps it's the collective unconscious whispering in our direction. Synchronicity, a term coined by Jung, is evidence that these hidden connections really exist. Unlike causality, where one event leads to another in a predictable way, synchronicity operates through deep meanings, aligning events in an almost magical way. Who hasn't thought of someone and, minutes later, that person sent a message, or found exactly the book they needed without even looking for it? These coincidences carry valuable messages, but only those who learn to decipher them can harness their true power. But how do we access this flow of information that seems to guide us? The human mind is not just an individual universe, but part of a vast shared field of symbols, memories, and experiences. Jung differentiated the personal unconscious, which carries individual traumas and memories, from the collective unconscious, an ancestral reservoir that transcends time and culture. In it are archived universal patterns that shape our emotions, reactions, and even daily choices, even without us realizing it. That's why certain images or stories resonate so strongly with us, as if we knew them even before hearing them for the first time. Think about myths that span centuries and continue to impact us. The hero's journey, the wise master archetype, the rebel figure, these narrative patterns repeat because they're rooted in our psyche. They didn't appear out of nowhere, but from a collective unconscious that seems to guide humanity through cycles of learning. What's fascinating is that even without direct contact, different civilizations created similar symbols, like dragons representing challenges or spirals symbolizing evolution. This suggests there's a hidden intelligence linking our perception of reality. But how does this collective unconscious affect our daily lives? From the trends we follow to the fears we carry, much of what we think is individual choice may actually be a reflection of this invisible field. Our dreams, intuitions, and even certain unexpected encounters may be manifestations of this unconscious communicating with us. What happens when we begin to see beyond the surface and notice these signals? Within each person, subtle forces operate silently, directing emotions, choices, and behaviors. Jung called these forces archetypes, universal patterns that inhabit the collective unconscious and influence our lives in ways we don't always perceive. From birth, our psyche is shaped by these deep structures, which lead us to repeat ancestral stories in our own journeys. Who hasn't felt called to a transformative adventure like a true hero, or sought the wisdom of a master in moments of uncertainty? These impulses don't arise by chance, but from something much greater within us. Each archetype carries powerful energy and can manifest in different ways throughout life. The sage guides us in the search for knowledge and meaning, while the lover connects us with passion and desire. The hero, in turn, drives us to overcome challenges and win internal battles. By understanding which archetypes predominate in your journey, you begin to see repetitive patterns and, more importantly, learn to use them to your advantage. If you notice you always assume the role of caregiver, perhaps it's time to balance that energy to avoid becoming overwhelmed. If the rebel is your essence, how can you channel that force to create real change? But how do you identify these archetypes in your life? One practical way is to observe the characters that fascinate you most in books and movies, as they often reflect hidden parts of your own psyche. Do you identify with figures like Gandalf, who bring knowledge and guidance? Or do you feel the restlessness of an adventurer like Indiana Jones, always in search of the unknown? By recognizing these patterns, it's possible to take a more conscious role in your own story. And if archetypes shape our journey, what happens when seemingly random events begin to align in inexplicable ways? Often, seemingly random events fit together so precisely that they appear to have been planned. Have you ever thought of someone and moments later received a message from that person, or found exactly the book you needed at the right moment? Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, the mysterious connection between internal and external events without a direct causal relationship, but with a profound meaning. Unlike chance, synchronicity suggests that reality isn't just a sequence of disconnected events, but an interconnected flow that responds to our psyche. Synchronicity occurs when the unconscious manifests in the external world, creating invisible bridges between what we feel and what we experience. For Jung, these meaningful coincidences indicate an alignment between our internal world and the flow of life. If you're searching for a purpose and begin to notice repetitive signs around you, like specific numbers, symbols, or unexpected encounters, it may be that your psyche is dialoguing with the collective unconscious. These events serve as an invitation to look beyond the surface and understand that there's a greater intelligence guiding the journey. But how do you differentiate synchronicity from mere coincidence? The key lies in emotional resonance. When something happens and awakens a strong feeling of connection, a sense of, this can't be just chance, there's a good chance it's a synchronistic event. The more attentive we are, the more we'll notice these signs multiplying as if we were tuned into a greater flow. Synchronicity reveals that the unconscious communicates all the time, and those who learn to listen to these signals can discover paths they never would have imagined. If archetypes shape our journey and synchronicity guides us, how can we access this knowledge to transform our reality? The way we see the world isn't born just from our personal experiences, but from a much larger field, filled with ideas we inherit without realizing. From early on, we're shaped by collective beliefs that dictate what's right, wrong, possible, or unattainable. The collective unconscious, described by Jung, carries myths, values, and norms that span generations, influencing everything from how we work to our notions of happiness. The question is, how many of these beliefs truly reflect who we are? Is what you seek in life coming from a genuine desire or from a pre-established model that hasn't even been questioned? Think about the idea of success. For many, it means status, money, and recognition. But this is a social construct that changes according to time and culture. In some societies, success is linked to contribution to the community. In others, to the freedom to live without external pressures. The same happens with love and spirituality. Inherited models tell us how we should relate to others, what's acceptable to feel, and even how we should express faith. But what if these patterns don't make sense to you? Jung invites us to look within and ask, how much of this worldview really belongs to me? The good news is that beliefs can be reframed. A practical method is active questioning. Whenever an idea limits your choices, ask yourself, who said this, and does this help me or imprison me? Another strategy is exposure to new perspectives. Reading books from different traditions, talking to people outside your social bubble and reflecting on what really makes sense for you. Transformation begins when you become aware of the stories you live without realizing. What if you could rewrite your own narrative? The relationships we form aren't random. On the contrary, they're mirrors of our collective unconscious and the beliefs we inherit without realizing. From a young age, we absorb patterns of affection, conflict, and connection by observing our families, movies, and cultural stories. These influences shape our expectations about love, often making us repeat dynamics we don't even know exist. Have you ever wondered why certain people always attract distant, controlling, or emotionally unavailable partners? This happens because our mind seeks familiarity, even if that familiarity is dysfunctional. And so we follow an invisible script that leads us to encounters that reinforce already established beliefs. Jung called this psychological projection. We see in others what we carry within ourselves, often without being aware of it. If a person doesn't believe they deserve love, they'll attract partners who reinforce that belief. If someone grew up in an environment where love came with suffering, they might confuse emotional intensity with depth of connection. The repetition of cycles in relationships isn't a coincidence, but a reflection of what hasn't yet been resolved internally. The good news? This can be changed. The first step is to recognize these patterns and understand that what we attract has more to do with our psyche than with luck or bad luck in love. To break unconscious patterns and build healthier connections, it's essential to develop self-awareness. A simple yet powerful exercise is to keep an emotional journal. Write down the patterns that repeat in your relationships, the types of people you tend to attract, and how you feel in each dynamic. Ask yourself, what does this say about my unconscious beliefs? Another effective strategy is to work on self-knowledge through therapy or practices like reflective writing and meditation. The more light we shed on our internal patterns, the more capacity we have to transform them. And in doing so, we make room for more balanced and authentic relationships. The shadow, a concept introduced by Jung, represents everything we deny or repress in ourselves, that which we prefer not to see. Each individual has their personal shadow, formed by aspects of personality that are hidden or not accepted. But there is also the collective shadow, a set of experiences, traumas, and fears that are inherited by society and shape everyone's behavior, often without us realizing it. The collective shadow is composed of cultural and social patterns that haven't been integrated and therefore continue to manifest in destructive ways, such as prejudice, inequality, and violence. This shadow defines us in ways that aren't always evident, influencing our actions and beliefs invisibly yet powerfully. Historical traumas such as wars, slavery, and discrimination don't stay in the past. They remain alive in the collective unconscious, impacting subsequent generations. Collective fears also infiltrate, fueling stigmas, segregations, and even identity crises. A clear example of this is how society still often carries the stigmas of races or ethnicities based on historical events, perpetuating intolerance and prejudice, even if subtly. The collective shadow isn't just an inheritance of pain, but also of potential. When we don't recognize this shadow, it becomes a destructive force. However, when we begin to integrate these aspects, we can heal the wounds of our society and transform the collective for the better. Integrating the collective shadow, like the personal shadow, requires awareness and action. Beginning to question deep-rooted beliefs, looking at painful aspects of history, and allowing these shadows to come to light is a necessary process for everyone's evolution. This starts with individual responsibility. For example, by educating yourself about historical injustices or reflecting on how prejudices might be present in our everyday attitudes. A practical first step would be to get involved with communities that are actively working for inclusion and equality. Only by confronting these shadows can we create a more just and balanced society. Jung believed that myths aren't just ancient or fanciful stories, but deep reflections of the collective unconscious. They're like a mirror, reflecting universal truths present in all of us. These myths reveal behavior patterns and archetypes that shape our lives, offering a symbolic map for our inner journey. Each myth has a plot that, although belonging to a specific culture or time, is deeply connected to the challenges and psychological processes we all face. And, as in a good book, ancient stories can teach us something crucial about who we are and where we're going. The journey of individuation, or the process of becoming who we truly are, can be better understood when we see how myths apply to our lives. The hero myth, for example, presents the hero who sets out on a journey, faces challenges, finds allies and enemies, and in the end, returns transformed. This structure of self-discovery is something we all go through in some way, seeking purpose, overcoming internal and external obstacles. If we look at our own lives, we'll see that, at some point, we're all called to this journey, whether facing an existential crisis, seeking a meaningful career, or trying to improve our relationships. The hero myth is a powerful metaphor for this path of personal transformation. A clear example of this myth can be seen in everyday challenges. For instance, if someone faces a major life change, such as a career change or relationship breakup, it's as if they're experiencing the hero's journey. They face doubt and fear, but also begin to perceive their inner strengths and capabilities, and in the end, emerge from this experience stronger and more aware. By applying this mythological perspective to our own lives, we can find clarity in chaos and recognize that each challenge is an opportunity to grow, like a hero who is, step by step, shaping their own story. Jung believed that dreams are one of the most powerful ways to access the collective unconscious. For him, dreams aren't just random images created by the brain, but symbolic messages that come from deeper layers of the psyche. Each dream symbol, no matter how simple it may seem, carries an important meaning about our fears, desires, and especially about the process of individuation. By paying attention to dreams, we can discover not only hidden aspects of ourselves, but also universal patterns and archetypes that are guiding us, often without us realizing it. When analyzing dreams, we can unravel clues about who we are and what we need to transform in our lives. Archetypes, present in the collective unconscious, frequently manifest in our dreams. They aren't just mythological figures or story characters, but patterns of behavior and energy that we all carry within us. The sage, the great mother, the hero, and the shadow are just a few examples that subtly appear in dreams, revealing the invisible forces acting on our journey. If you dream of a wise old man giving you advice, or a great serpent representing danger and transformation, these images are more than simple narrative elements. They relate to the archetypes that, according to Jung, are deeply rooted in the human psyche. To access these deep meanings, it's important to practice dream interpretation. A simple technique is to keep a dream journal, where you write down everything you remember as soon as you wake up. From there, begin to reflect on the symbols and emotions present in the dream. Another practice is symbolic analysis, which consists of questioning what each element of the dream represents for you, without rushing to find an immediate explanation. The key here is to observe with curiosity and patience, allowing the unconscious to reveal what needs to be seen. Over time, you'll begin to notice how your dreams connect with larger themes and with the archetypes that guide your journey. The process of individuation is a central concept in Jung's work, and it describes the journey through which we become our true essence. This path is a continuous quest to integrate all parts of ourselves, both conscious and unconscious, and become a more complete version of who we really are. Jung believed that we're all born with a unique potential, but throughout life, we end up shaped by external influences and the collective unconscious. The process of individuation, therefore, is a way to free ourselves from these influences, from the masks that society imposes, and to embrace our authenticity with all our shadows and light. It's a journey of deep self-knowledge that requires courage, patience, and the willingness to face the parts of ourselves we'd prefer to hide. For many, the limiting patterns that govern us come from the collective unconscious, which transmits beliefs and expectations from past generations. For example, beliefs that we should follow a certain professional path or behave according to specific social norms. These external expectations often distance us from our true essence and make us live a life that isn't ours. The process of individuation, then, is the key to freeing ourselves from these influences and finding our own path. As we become more aware of these patterns, we can begin to make decisions more aligned with our true self and not with the expectations that society or others have of us. This is an essential step to discovering our true vocation and living a life with more meaning and authenticity. There are various practical tools that can help in this process of individuation. One is meditation, which allows us to contact the deeper layers of the mind and identify the shadows we carry. Another valuable tool is therapy, which can help identify and work with parts of the psyche that haven't yet been integrated. Additionally, daily self-questioning is a simple but powerful practice. Every day, ask yourself, what am I doing to get closer to my true essence? What am I doing to free myself from patterns that no longer serve me? Over time, these practices begin to create space for internal transformation, where little by little, you free yourself from the bonds of the collective unconscious and become the person you were always meant to be. In recent years, science has begun to explore more deeply the idea that our actions and thoughts aren't only influenced by personal factors, but also by collective patterns that extend beyond our individuality. Studies on human behavior show that many of our behaviors aren't exclusive to an individual, but follow patterns shared by a group. This suggests that somehow, collective beliefs and emotions are shaping our daily decisions, actions, and reactions. For example, in social psychology studies, researchers have found that cultural norms and social stereotypes strongly influence life choices, from career to how we relate to others. The idea of a collective unconscious aligns perfectly with this discovery, suggesting that we are all somehow connected by an invisible network of collective influences. One of the most fascinating aspects of this theory is synchronicity, a concept coined by Jung, which suggests that seemingly random events may actually be deeply connected and carry hidden meanings. Various scientific experiments have tried to validate the idea of synchronicity, revealing that certain encounters and events don't happen by mere chance, but as an expression of the collective unconscious. For example, a study conducted with participants from social groups observed that, in moments of strong collective emotional charge, individuals not directly connected to each other began to have similar experiences. This raises an intriguing question. Are these coincidences really chance occurrences, or is there something deeper and interconnected behind them? Jung's theory, when combined with these studies, leads us to believe that everything is, in fact, interconnected in ways we can't fully understand. Moreover, neuroscience and modern psychology are also beginning to make connections with Jung's ideas, especially regarding the collective unconscious. Research on neural networks and information processing shows that the human brain is highly influenced by collective thought patterns. Neuroscience recognizes that our perceptions of the world are shaped not only by our personal experiences, but also by social, cultural, and historical norms that are present in the collective unconscious. This is visible in studies on belief formation and even in the impact of collective traumas, such as wars or major social crises, which leave deep marks on subsequent generations. Modern psychology also recognizes the role of the collective unconscious, especially in the work of therapists who deal with collective traumas and how these experiences are passed from generation to generation. The convergence of these areas with Jung's ideas shows us that the connection between the individual and the collective is much stronger and deeper than we imagine. Now that you understand how the collective unconscious influences your life, it's time to start noticing the signs around you. Coincidences aren't random. They can be valuable clues guiding us. Be alert to small connections between events and people, as these moments might be directing you towards something bigger. Each encounter, each choice, may be more than simple casualty. It could be a reflection of a universal pattern in action. Self-awareness is the power that allows you to reframe your entire journey. By being more attentive to your actions and reactions, you begin to identify where unconscious patterns are limiting you. When you become conscious of how these influences shape your decisions, you gain the ability to transform them and thus create a path more aligned with your true essence. Synchronicities aren't just coincidences, they're opportunities for growth. They appear to show you new paths, new learnings. By embracing these messages, you open yourself to a journey of personal evolution where each sign transforms into a step toward your development. Start seeing life in a more connected and transformative way, where you can indeed shape your own reality. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue learning about these topics that can change your life. And if you like this content, be sure to check out another video linked in the description and card.